Welcome to Lead Like Her, a podcast about female leadership and how lessons from sport translate to life. My name is Violet, and I am so glad you're here today. I'm a member of the women's basketball team at Denison University, and throughout my life, sports have shaped who I am. They've taught me resilience, confidence, and the importance of having great leaders around you. But I've also learned that confidence isn't something you just have. It's something you build. And for many athletes like myself, it's an ongoing journey. That curiosity is what inspired this podcast. As part of my research on female leadership in sport, I'm sitting down with women who are leading at every level of athletics and business to learn about their experiences, the challenges they've faced, and the lessons that have shaped them as leaders. Whether you're an athlete, a coach, or someone who's simply interested in becoming a better leader, I hope these conversations leave you feeling inspired and give you something you can take into your own life. Thanks for listening, and let's get into today's conversation. Today, I'm honored to be joined by Coach Maureen Hirt, the head women's basketball coach at Denison University. Coach Mo is the definition of what it means to be a great leader. She went from a 10-16 season her first year coaching, flash forward 3 years later, to winning the national championship. In our conversation, we discuss Coach Mo's journey from athlete to college coach and the values that shaped her along the way. She shares how confidence, teamwork, being present, and joy have guided her coaching philosophy, especially during the team's national championship run. So let's get started. Coach Mo, thank you so much for being on the Lead Like Her podcast today. So the first thing I want to ask you is, you're an amazing coach. You've been an amazing mentor to me. But did you always know you wanted to be a coach? Take us back to when you were a student athlete. Was coaching always part of the plan?
Yeah, no, first of all, thanks, Vi, for having me. And to say that I'm a mentor to you is, I think, one of the greatest honors that I could ever have. So I really appreciate you doing this and having me on. But I would say coaching was not like in the picture for me initially when I was a student athlete. I obviously played at Kenyon just down the road, about 40 minutes from Denison. And I obviously loved playing. I loved the competitiveness, and I had great coaches growing up, and in college I had really great mentors, but I thought that I was going to get into the business world. I was like, I have to develop this identity outside of basketball. It's not my whole personality. Like, I have to be able to use this Kenyon degree. I was an econ and psych double major, so I thought I wanted to get into like consumer behavior and marketing. And so I was like, I'm not going to try to continue to play basketball. I'm going to, step into the real world and try to develop, like I said, an identity outside of basketball. So I moved down to Cincinnati and was working at an ad agency, a typical 9 to 5, but wanted to kind of climb that ladder a little bit. So it was more like 8 to 7, and really enjoyed it. Like, I got to work for some really cool clients and got exposure to the corporate world. And as a young, 20, 21, 22-year-old person, trying to figure out my way in the world and adulting at a really fast pace in downtown Cincinnati, but started coaching on the side, just 8th grade boys basketball, 4th grade girls basketball as well, and fell in love with it. I was coaching amongst a sea of dads and different people who had been coaching their kids for many years, was coaching one of the A teams at a local middle school, and fell in love with it. It was something that I really enjoyed doing, and, being able to obviously figure out the X's and O's, but I think figuring out how to help players really continue to grow and develop was something really fun. And like, we got to obviously select our teams. It was like a select 8th grade boys basketball team. So watching talent and figuring out who's going to be a good fit for the A team. And kind of from there, I was doing it on the side for a little bit. I was getting my master's in marketing at the University of Cincinnati at that time. And then started to get into like the sports performance training world. And so some of those players would ask, like, hey, can you stay after for, 30 minutes, come in on a Sunday and take them through workouts. So I got into like the player development space and really enjoyed that, like being able to see a player take something that you worked on in a session and then apply it into a game or apply it in their AAU team or whatever it might be. I felt a lot of joy in seeing people and helping them succeed. So got into that. Also part-time in addition to coaching middle school, and took the leap of faith, after I finished my master's and did it full time for a couple of years, and it was, immersing yourself in, like, a lot of basketball, 14-hour days where you're working and, you're getting paid only through the hours that you're working, so it wasn't a salaried position. You gotta get up at 7 a.m. and you gotta work till 11 p.m. in the gym, so I loved it. It was something that challenged me and helped me grow, I think, in a lot of ways, and then in 2019, I took the step into college coaching, and when I got into that and got to be able to obviously get the player development aspect of it, but also get back into college athletics, recruiting, X's and O's, I knew it was what I was meant to do.
You started doing the player development stuff. And like you said earlier, you've been playing basketball your whole life. You went to Kenyon. You were the leading scorer at Kenyon College. And so, like, when people hear that, they might assume, oh, yeah, like, she's probably pretty confident, came naturally to you. Do you think that was something that was actually the case? How did you develop that belief in yourself as a player?
I think I definitely the confidence even to this day is something that I have to work on as a skill. I don't think it's something that really came naturally to me. I think I had a lot of, like I said, coaches and people who believed in me, instilled a lot of confidence in me, but I think a lot of confidence also comes from internal. And for me as a player, I think it was just repetition and outworking people was kind of where I got my confidence from. I knew that there were very few people that I was going to play against that shot more shots than me or had spent more hours in the gym or watched more film in the preparation process. So I think that's really as a player in college, I grew a lot of my confidence from. And I think playing with joy and being able to be surrounded by great teammates too, they helped me navigate that process. I didn't feel like I was on an island. And I think having really good teammates who were some of my best friends, but also helped get in the gym with me and helped me develop, I think, an identity. I think college is that time where you are trying to figure out your viewpoints on the world, like trying to figure out and navigate, like I said, almost the real world after you graduate. I think they helped me in that process. But and even as a coach, like as a first year head coach, I was trying to figure out my confidence and like making decisions, right? Calling timeouts and being able to develop culture. And obviously there's a lot of things that go into building a program, but my confidence has grown across every year of doing this, and I think it just comes from having that growth mindset where you've never arrived, you're never the finished product. So I think it's just continuing to work and taking pride in outworking people in this realm of things too, I think. But confidence is something that I think is not necessarily talked about enough in our space, and is something that I think a lot of people have different viewpoints on.
No, I mean, I completely agree. I think similar to you, and I think I still have the mentality is like no one is working harder than me. So naturally, I should have this confidence. But also, it's something that is one of my biggest struggles is, even though I am working the hardest, how can I still feel that and then translate to the game? So I feel like it's something that you're continually trying to work on. And exactly what you said as a head coach, every new phase in your life, it's like, okay, the confidence develops over time. And with that growth mindset, like you had mentioned, that's where you actually get more confident is through that time that you're taking to get better at it. And I think it's something like the comparison factor. Try not to compare yourself to anyone else but you.
Mm.
So, I mean, many young athletes compare themselves to everyone. What would you tell an athlete who maybe is talented enough, but they're not feeling like it? They're not feeling talented, not athletic enough, or not good enough to reach their goals.
I think it's really important. Like your self talk is something that's really important. If you say, "Oh, I'm not good enough. I'm not as fast as this person," and I think even in the explosion of social media, like that's what a comparison is all about, right? My Instagram pictures, my TikTok followers, whatever it might be, we get so caught up in what everybody else is doing. I think in the college basketball space, Twitter's huge. I got offers from this place. I went on this visit, and I always say that to people, like you have to run your own race in life and obviously when it comes to basketball, because the only way that you're going to get joy in what you do is through running your own race and, like I said, doing it with the people that you love. And I think it's something that if you get caught up in that, it's really easy to have that negative self-talk and to get in those negative cycles where it's, I'm not good enough, or this person has this. And when you talk about living a fulfilling life and maximizing your potential as a basketball player, I feel like that's what a coach is supposed to help you do too. And I think parents, obviously, as you're, like I said, developing your identity and going through a recruiting process or going through college, your parents can help you. But I think that is the role of a coach too, is to help sometimes players get out of their own heads or get out of that comparison race where you're like, this person has this or this person's getting this accolade. And I think there's always going to be something like that in your life. And if you continue to live that way, I think you are taking away some of your own joy, because we talk about it a lot in our program, right? Taking joy in other people's success. And I think that is one thing that makes our team different. That's something that makes Denison different from other high academic institutions. It's not about the individual accolades. It's not about getting the best job or being able to post this thing on social media. It is about taking joy in the process of doing special things with people. That's what it is. And I think that's what coaching is. That's what we try to do here at Denison. I think that's what's made this program really special and this journey really special for me.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it goes back to what you said, is having great people alongside you. That's when you find like the ultimate joy, is playing the sport you love or coaching the sport you love with the people that you love. And that's how you're able to push yourself to the next level, because you can't do it alone. I had a conversation with Nan the other day, and she was saying how leadership is about everyone else, not you. So learning how to put everyone else before your own needs, but, playing for those people, coaching for those people. I think that's really important. So you said you coach fourth grade, eighth grade, you coach college, you've coached all stages of development. And this past year, you led a team to national championship. So what's one value you refuse to compromise as a coach, and why is it so important?
What's one value? I mean, we always break down our huddles and we say together. I think we say that a lot. And I think we talk about one of our core values in our program is unity. And I think all of our success has stemmed from that. And I think it's what you guys have been able to do in this women's basketball program is you guys have stayed together through all of the outside noise, throughout all the doubters, everybody else. And I think you've been talking about just building confidence and how do you do that over the course of time. But I think staying together with the people that you get to do it with, I think that's the beauty of team sports. And that's why there's so much joy is in what we get to do on the basketball floor is, yeah, I think staying together and, like we said, being very process oriented and enjoying the journey. I think you're only kind of capturing one piece of the pie there, right? And I think when you look back on your life and you look back on that national championship 40 years from now, I don't think you're going to remember how many points you scored or how many minutes you played or what your stats were or the social media post was. I think you're going to remember the people that you did it with and who you did it with together. And that is the beauty of what we get to do, I think, on a daily basis is that togetherness. So I'd say that's the value that stands out to me the most.
Yeah. I mean, when I look back on it already, I'm just so happy to have done it with an amazing group of people. But you're exactly right. Like, you're not going to remember the stats, and stats are such a huge part of basketball and in a lot of sports for a lot of athletes. So giving advice to an athlete, how do you say, no, don't care about the stats?
Mm. I think the stats come when you release that pressure that you put on yourself, right? You can almost feel it sometimes where you kind of like white knuckle something where you want it so badly, right? You want that, that all conference award, you want that double, you want that overseas, whatever it is. But if that's your focus, I think your mind is putting too much pressure on yourself and you're not going to perform to the best of your ability. And I think there's obviously a lot of sports psychology with that, right? If I tell myself don't foul, don't foul, don't foul, and then you end up fouling, right? Like there's a lot of like the self-fulfilling prophecy, and how you talk to yourself can really affect the way that you perform, and I think the joy you get out of what you're doing. So I'd say with someone, like when it becomes to that stuff, it takes care of itself if you just focus on making winning plays and putting in really good work. I think when it comes to anything in your life, right, that's basketball, but I think that's so much beyond that. If you just put your head down and control what you can control and make winning plays, like that is someone that we want in our program when it comes to like high schoolers playing in college, whether it's playing in college and, like I said, playing professionally or going overseas, whatever that might be. At the end of the day, I think people want to have people on their teams that make like winning plays. And I think that speaks to like your game, Vi. Like maybe you've had double digit games. You've had a huge game versus Southern Virginia in our first round of the NCAA tournament. But the reason you're on the floor and the reason you made such a huge impact in this program is you're just a winner in everything that you do. You make winning plays. You have the game winning offensive board put back to in that Ohio Wesleyan game. And I think sometimes that stuff doesn't show up on the stat sheets, but when it comes to whether it's getting your first job, whether it's continuing to play basketball, whatever that might be, I think people really value that. And I think it just shows that people who can work within a team structure succeed well, whether it's in sports, but whether it's in the corporate world, whatever it might be. I think it's important to have people that maybe don't necessarily need the individual recognition, but can excel in the role that they have within that team structure.
Yeah, that's a great point, is like controlling what you can control. I think the people that move up or do really well in their role, whether that's, in their sport or in their job or in their family life, it's like being the best that they can be in that specific place that you're in. I mean, you talk all the time, Coach Mo, about being present. And I think when you tell our team that, it actually reinforces us to actually be present, because everyone says it all the time, but when we're in a team huddle, we're doing the question of the day, and then you re-emphasizing being present, I think it impacts all of us, because it's like, okay, this is all we have. Like, we have this hour and a half, 2 hour practice right now to get better. And then that is all that matters in that moment. And then when you leave, I feel like more refreshed, because I wasn't focusing on what was going on in school or in my relationships or anything. You're just focusing on where your feet are, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you hope every player who leaves your program carries with long after basketball is over, long after the ball stops bouncing, a lot of people say?
My gosh, I love that question. It almost makes me emotional to hear that one, Vi, because I think that is something that I value more than any win, any trophy, anything like that, is how do people, when they leave this program, how they feel about their experience with me as their coach, with our staff, with their experience at Denison holistically. I feel like that is when someone graduates from Denison, I want them to feel first and foremost that they are set up for success for life. That they have been challenged, they have been loved, they have grown as a person, as a basketball player, as a leader in so many ways. And that doesn't mean that there wasn't adversity throughout their 4 years at Denison, right? I think sometimes you learn more from the adverse situations that you have than you do with things going well. So I think just hoping that they feel like me as their coach is in their corner for the rest of their life. Like we always talk about, this is a 40-year decision at Denison. This is not just a 4-year. This is a coach that when you're going through, really hard times, right? Like really good times, first job, wedding, whatever it might be, that you feel like you have a staff of people and teammates that are going to be there for you through the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. And I think that's the mark of a good program, is if I just come to practice for 2 hours a day and I graduate with my degree in 4 years, I feel like that's only, like I said, one piece of the puzzle when it comes to your experience in this program. So I really want them to take, I think, first and foremost, the relationships they have with their teammates and their coaches. Like, and those are people that can help them navigate when they graduate and make a lot of memories throughout their 4 years at Denison too, where they feel like they won a lot of basketball games. Obviously, that's a great piece of it. Won some championships, but these are people that they're gonna show up for in those areas of their life. And then I think like just Denison and what the doors it opens up to, like being able to feel like, hey, I'm really competitive to go to med school, to get my first job, to get into this career, feeling like and that's what I think has kept me at Denison too, is just the institution that we have as a whole. Like there is so much support and there's belief in the education that they get here and the experiences to set you up for success when the ball does stop bouncing or when you're in that next phase of your life.
Yeah, I mean, you stick to every word that you say. I mean, and I can say this for sure, is like, I'm going in my senior year with 7 other amazing individuals, and I'm so confident that I'm going to be bawling my eyes out leaving after basketball is over, after school is over, because of your coaching, because of the people that I've met. Like, it's just been the best experience and more. This has exceeded anything I could have expected at Denison. I mean, it's just, like you said, it makes me emotional talking about it because this place is so special. Like, I couldn't think of anywhere better than this. Denison is an amazing institution. It hires amazing people like you. The education is amazing. However, I think in our society, higher education is getting a lot of pushback right now.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts on that? How can we improve, or how can we do better?
Yeah, higher education really is changing rapidly. And I think what gives me so much confidence about Denison though is like we are very adaptable. Like we are trying to stay on the pulse of the changing landscape at the NCAA, right? And college sports, but also just higher education as a whole. And I think making sure that I think we have the best college president in the country, and I don't just say that because I work at Denison. Like, Adam Weinberg is truly one of one. He values athletics and what it means to the overall Denison experience, but there is a sense of urgency in helping Denison stay on the cutting edge. I think the majors that we offer at Denison, right? Data analytics, global commerce, global health, offering a finance major now. I think we've shown that we can still stay true to the liberal arts while adapting to the very applicable majors that help, get those first jobs and stand out on resumes. I think that's been awesome. I think there's an importance placed on financial aid and making Denison accessible to more people and making sure that we can capture all different types of diversity on our campus. I think there's a lot of initiatives happening right now to do that, and I think that's a sign of a really healthy institution. And I just think like there's a support for athletics here. I think you can probably speak to that, but there are a lot of places, right, that are in the high academic space that don't place as much of a value on sports and what it means to the campus experience. And I think Denison operates in a unique space where you can have in a world-class education and also compete at a really high level where competitive excellence is placed at a premium here. And I think there's very few institutions in the country that are doing those both really well. And I think Denison's kind of, like I said, in the category that's not really going on at a lot of institutions in the country. So I think that gives me a lot of confidence. But I think the willingness to adapt and navigate the ever-changing landscape, I think, is the key piece to it.
Mhm. Yeah, adaptability is a main skill to develop, throughout your whole life. Adaptability is so hard because, at least for me, I want to have a plan. I want to stick to that plan and that's it. But as I've gotten older, I've realized that that's not how life works out. And so being adaptable is very important. And, I think for you, it's so clear how much you love your job and how much you love coaching. And that is like, anyone who's spent even 5 minutes with you could tell you that. And like for our team, we're so grateful to have a coach who loves what they do. So I think I could guess what you're going to say, but I'm just curious. What do you love most about coaching?
Oh, it's you guys by far. Not even it's the relationships with the players that make this, I mean, the best job in the entire world. And it's funny when people say, "Oh, you have like your job is to coach college basketball." I'm like, "Yes, I can't believe it's a job. I cannot believe that I get to do and get to hang out with you guys every day and build this program on a daily basis." And I think it really is the people that make the experience. And it doesn't come without challenges and adversity, but I think to watch a team and watch even I think you guys step in as first years and like I think you entering your senior year of college now and to watch your growth as a person, as a basketball player, as people when it comes to just like the community and the way people talk about, the Violet Mitchells, the Abby Cooches, the Ada Towdies, the Adeline Moores, everybody in our team, when people talk about having a women's basketball player in class or having, a docent in the admissions office, like in talking about the people and how you guys have impacted the Denison community as a whole, I feel like that's every coach's dream, and then I think the hardest part for me in this coaching world though is I only get you guys for 4 years. that's the hardest part, and that's the thing that, this year, obviously, with our 3 seniors, that was the group that I've been able to see first time in my coaching career enter Denison as a first year and then leave as a senior, and I think that's gonna be the hardest part of this for me long term is to only get you guys on that day-to-day basis for 4 years, but I know, and like we've been talking about today, it's a lifelong relationship. It doesn't end when Denison graduation happens. Obviously, it changes, and I don't get to see you guys quite as much, but I think that is what coaching is all about is its influence. You're impacting the next generation of people, and it's something I don't take lightly, but it doesn't feel like a job to me either.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, yeah, it's just so apparent how much you love it, and it's really inspiring.
Mhm.
So, 2 years ago, you went from a 15 to an 11 season, and then this year we went to winning a national championship. So from the outside, people just see the trophy, but what do you think happened behind the scenes that made that transformation possible?
Yeah, I think when people, like, look at it outside looking in, obviously, we had injuries that 15 and 11 year, right? Ada tore ACL, Annalise knees were hurting her, Morgan, tore her labrum, there's a lot of stuff, but I think that's only a very small piece of getting people healthy was impactful. It was, helpful to have that this year, but I think we grew as an entire group in that year, and it really and I think ever since I got to Denison, I think these last 4 years, we've placed a premium on culture. We've placed, like, a really importance on, like, being the best teammates you can possibly be, building that gym rat culture where it's not just I come to practice and I go do my own thing. The relationships you have with each other and how you lead one another, I think that really came to fruition this year, and it was 4 years in the making, and it was, a lot of people's decision to say, "Hey, I wanna be a part of Denison women's basketball," because stepping into this program before you got here, we were 10 and 16. 10 and 16 didn't have that on-court success, but there's a lot of people that bought into the vision of what Denison could be, and I think that's how everything came to fruition this year, and I think as a group, and we've talked about this as a coach, looking last off season, like, we watched a lot of film on ourselves, and I watched the Final Four of the top teams that won that national championship or made it to that Final Four in Salem the year prior, and obviously we adjusted a lot of the X's and O's. We became a pressing team this past year because we had the depth and the ability, but I think we also became very process-oriented as opposed to results-oriented, and I think we just really enjoyed the journey and the daily process of getting better. Like you said, being really present for that hour and a half, 2 hours, knowing that we're gonna help you get a little bit better, and if we can just continue to stack days of improvement, we will be playing our best basketball at the right time, and we'll have a lot of fun doing it too, and I think that's something that our team has been in our secret sauce is you guys are highly, highly competitive people, but you love each other deeply. And I think there's a lot of when it comes to team sports, there's really highly competitive people, but they maybe don't enjoy the people that they do it with as much, or it's they have a lot of fun, but maybe the competitive aspect isn't there. And I think we have a really good combination of both. And I think that's been a little bit of our secret sauce. And I think, like you said, going back to what you started with this podcast on is confidence. I think we just play with a ton of confidence because we built those relationships with each other. We outworked people. We were out preparing people. And that what gave us a lot of confidence to go 6-0, I think, in the national tournament. And we truly took it one game at a time too. I think sometimes you can get caught up in, oh, we gotta earn the right to be here. We gotta look 2 or 3 games ahead. We could play these people. And it's like we just got tunnel vision on one game at a time and let's enjoy, head down to Virginia and we're spending our spring break down here. Let's have a little bit of fun and win at a high level while we're doing it.
So in this championship run, was there a specific moment when you felt like our team could actually win, or was it just something that you just knew?
I mean, I think in the first 2 rounds, getting the right to host and like the way we showed up in the beginning of that first game versus Southern Virginia. I mean, no one on our roster had played in an NCAA tournament before, much less had the pressure of hosting the first 2 rounds and winning on our home floor. So I think when we came out in that game and really set the tone, I was like, wow, like this is a really special group. But I think the turning point for me where I was like, wow, we could win the national championship was when we played at WNL in that environment. And I think you can describe it to the best of your ability, but only the people in that gym, I think, could really speak to what that environment was like, where there wasn't a seat there every seat was full. There's people in the hallways trying to peek in and watch this game. And when we were in the warm-ups and, the student section was already there and they started, counting our misses when we were shooting in our warm-up drills. And I remember one of our players airballed it and the crowd just like let them have it. They were just screaming, hooting and hollering at our team. And I looked at you guys and I saw you guys just smile. You just smiled and laughed and like gave each other high fives, and then you just went about your business. And I was like, oh my gosh, like all of the adversities, obviously we had some tough losses this past year. Like I think we would have been like gotten like a little bit tighter, right? But you guys were still so relaxed. We're like, yeah, this is like, and we talked about like this environment is fun. How cool is this environment as opposed to, oh, there's all this pressure to make it to the Final Four, to earn the right to go to Salem. We're like, let's just play. Let's hoop. This is everything you dream of when you talk about playing in a college basketball environment and playing in the NCAA tournament. Not a seat is empty. And, obviously the crowd was against us, not with us, but I don't think it changed our mentality. We're just like, let's go out and hoop together and play basketball with my best friends. And I think it showed in the way that we had that composure down the stretch in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, you described that so well. I mean, it was a sea of blue, playing in that, but it was so much fun, like you said. I mean, it doesn't matter if they're cheering for us or against us because it's just the fact that it was so loud. It felt like everyone was just watching us, and it was just fun. Like, how cool is that to have the opportunity? And especially, as a female in sport, it's very rare to see this. I mean, we've seen women's basketball on the rise these past couple of years, but just to actually experience that yourself as a coach, as a player, as a parent or fan, I mean, it's so rewarding and just so refreshing to be able to experience that and be like, oh my gosh, this is what it's like. This is what it should feel like. So, I mean, it was a lot of fun. What would you say like this championship taught you about leadership? Because out of all the teams, you were the one to coach the championship, the winning game. What do you think that taught you about leadership?
Yeah, I think I've grown so much as a coach. And in this year, I think like some things just clicked for me. And I think the lesson that I learned the most throughout the course of the season is that you guys feed so much off of our energy as coaches, right? If we're down, you guys are down, right? If we're negative, it gives you guys that space to be negative. But if we help you guys like set the tone with the way that our body language, the way we talk to each other as a staff, like that is so important. And we always talk about how the little things obviously stem up into big things. But I think for us, there's so many people. We were even out recruiting this past week and they're like, the composure your team showed was just, I've never seen anything like it. And I've had dozens of people say that to me. And it's just like, I think there's a lot of things our program has been through, I think, that has like obviously like going through the cancer journey. And we talk about adversity and how adversity can sometimes take you to places that you haven't been otherwise. But for me, when it came down to like, making plays and going in the Final Four, I think we talk about like there's real life adversity, like being diagnosed with cancer and navigating something like that. And there's adversity where a team's going on a 10-point run or whatever it might be. And I think for me, that gave me perspective as a coach. And I think it just showed when we were going throughout the NCAA tournament that, like, if we can stay composed under pressure and I can demonstrate that as a leader, it's going to help you guys navigate it. Because if I come into a timeout really sped up, highly anxious, yelling or whatever it might be, you guys are going to feel that, and that affects the way that you guys play on the court. So I think as a leader, it's really important to keep yourself. And that's not to say you're not going to have your moments, right? Like, no one's going to be perfect. But I think the fact that, like, people feed off of your body language and energy, and just making sure that I step into every huddle knowing that's an important piece of my role to help you guys navigate. I think that really clicked for me a lot as a young head coach. My first few years, I'd be really fiery and energetic, and sometimes that works well, but also sometimes you guys just need someone to help you take a few deep breaths and reset in those moments. So I think that was a big lesson for me this year.
Yeah. I mean, as a player, it's definitely true. Like the energy that you bring really impacts like how we play, how our team plays. And so, yeah, like during that, every game, every time we were in a tough situation and you didn't show how stressed you were, like the whole time, you didn't show any emotion really besides your joy, your competitiveness, the fun that we're having. Like I never felt that sense. So it almost took the pressure off like, okay, we're okay. And it's okay. And then when you're playing on the court, you're able to feel that and then spread that onto the other players too.
Mhm.
So kind of transitioning into, maybe there's some athletes who are watching this who want to go into coaching, potentially me myself. It seems like it can be incredibly rewarding, but also incredibly difficult. What advice would you give to young coaches who are questioning themselves after a tough season, criticism, or setback during their coaching career?
Mm. I think you gotta give yourself grace in this industry, and I think there's so much that goes into it. There's so much behind the scenes work, and I think that's what sometimes people struggle with is, like, I think a lot of people think, "Oh, you coach the basketball games, you go to practice, the summers are completely off," but I think, like, a lot of people don't realize the behind the scenes work that you have to do both personally, but also to help your team be at their best during the season. And I think just recognizing that, like, this is something that maybe not everybody's gonna understand the behind the scenes work of what it takes to be a coach. So, I think giving yourself a little bit of grace is something that I would say to that person, and then just making sure, like, continue to grow and continue to find ways to just like you expect your student athletes, especially with you guys over the summer, we expect you guys to come back better, whether it's, basketball skill specific stuff, leadership stuff. Like we have to get better as coaches too. We can't just sit and say, "Oh, well, I know everything. I know every X's and O's things we need to do. Our culture is perfect." Like I think for them it's just like take that initiative, right? Watch some more film, go to coaching clinics, go to somebody else's practices, whatever it is, just continue to find ways to get better. And then you're going to be able to step into that next season a more improved coach. So I think just recognize that it is a difficult process and sometimes it's really lonely. I think that's the hard part. And I think you always question yourself, did you make the right decision? Did you make the right call? But at the end of the day, if you recognize that like there's still different things that I can do, I'm continue to grow as a coach. I think you can be satisfied that like you're not always going to make the perfect decision, but you know that you thought about it and you put in the work to put your personal self and then your team in those best positions. So I think a little bit of giving each other grace and recognizing that it's not going to be perfect, but you're still going to go back to work the next day and hit it 10 times harder to continue to get better for your team.
So for you as a coach, how have you like actually become a better coach? Is it the film? Is it reading books? Is it coaching clinics like you said? Like what for you has worked best?
I think you have to understand that like you're never going to arrive at like you know everything. So I think it's a lot of little things where it's like obviously at Denison, we have so many highly successful coaches and just being able to pick their brains, like being able to talk about, what Mike Deegan and the baseball team, what do they do from a culture standpoint? How do they develop their core values? What do they do in the off season? What do their summers look like? Being able to talk with Coach John, our strength coach, about these are some different things that are happening in the strength and conditioning world. Because I feel like, when you say, like we did it last year, this is why we need to do it this year, like we can do it the same way, like that's when I feel like you get beat, right? With the moment you relax and say, just because we've always done it in this program this way, I think like being able to go into other coaches' offices and a lot of those organic conversations, learning from each other. And I think, like I said, the atmosphere at Denison is very unique in that space. But then I think it's just like having the humility to be able to ask other people, like, how did you do this? How did you develop this? And I think a lot of it comes from watching film. Like I said, last summer we watched Oshkosh, NYU, and Scranton. Those are the 3 teams that we watched a lot of and, like, being able to say, "Okay, they do this really well. How did they do that? And what can we take or how can we put our own spin on it?" And I think there's a lot of sometimes the best coaches take from other coaches, right? And being able to grow the game, and that's where, like, I've had people come up and be like, "How do you guys do your press? Like, how does that even work?" And being able to say, like, "Hey, I'll spend an hour on a Zoom with you and talk you through how we do that," because you wanna grow the game, you wanna help other people help their teams. So I think that's an important piece of it is just like the small connections with other coaches. And then there's so much information at our disposal now on the internet, right? There's online coaching clinics. You can go drive down the road and go to a high school game, a high school practice. I think that's a lot of this different stuff that I've done, and just making sure that I always know that there's different things that we can do. We can approach things differently. And I think being able to listen to the people around you, like hiring really good assistants that get you to think about things from a different perspective. Because sometimes as coaches, we can get tunnel vision on this is the history of how we've always done it. This is what I find, what I think is going to work. But being able to, I think, be a really active listener to the people around you is going to help you grow as a coach too. And I think the hardest part is sometimes hearing the feedback and really trying to take it in as opposed to getting defensive, right? Like a lot of it, it's like feels like a personal attack, but it's like maybe I need to realize the heck how this is coming off, or what I can do in this technique a little bit differently, or how can I teach this in a better way. I think you have to be open to criticism and feedback and really try to take it as opposed to having that personal defense that can come up sometimes.
Hmm. I've heard this saying before that when people give criticism in heat of the moment, you're supposed to take the content, not the tone.
Mm,
Because when you're hearing criticism, it stinks and it may be a shot at your confidence. Like if you're an athlete and your coach is yelling at you, well, your coach is yelling at you because your coach is caring about you. And
mhm,
maybe that's how your coach is coaching. But being able to just look at what they're actually saying instead of the way that they're receiving it. Because like you said, nobody's perfect. People are going to get heated. And so it's trying not to take it so personally because they're looking out for you. Hopefully all the coaches out there have their players' best interests at heart. So they're never intentionally trying to hurt you, but it's more of the fact that they're trying to get you better.
coaches have to be coachable too. Like just the way we
Yeah.
ask you guys to be coachable, I think as coaches for your own growth, you have to be coachable too.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, coaching is, I feel like there's a misconception. Coaching takes so much work, so many hours in the day. What would you say separates the coaches who are very successful, very good, but in order to do that, you have to put in the work. But how do you not get burnt out in this profession?
Mm, that's tough. I think you have to find your outlets. And I think self care is something that we don't talk about enough in the coaching world. I think everybody's trying to figure out how to do it. But I think what works for some people doesn't work with others. But I think we can't ask you guys to come in with like that fresh mindset and be present and to take care of yourselves and to hydrate and do all those things if we don't do it as coaches too. So I think we have to understand that we are role models in that and how you guys have that balance too. Because if you come to Dennis and it's all hoops, 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 I got to work out all the time. I got to do this. I got to get this workout in. I got to, like, you're not going to take advantage of the full Denison experience too. So I think you have to fill up your own cup in that process. And so I think as coaches, whether it's, working out, going on walks, podcasts, spending time with family, taking time away from the office, whatever it is, I think you have to be willing to do that and carve time out for yourself. And I think that's the thing I constantly have to remind myself of, because there's always something you can do. There's always recruiting you can do. There's always conversations you can have. There's always film you can watch, clinics you can listen to. But sometimes you do have to turn it off and try to be present with the people that are on the journey along with you. So I think that's an important piece to make sure that you don't burn yourself out. And I think you also have to be empowering the people around you, right? Empowering your assistant coaches, to be able to take things off of your plate. I think that is also the mark of a really good leader, because obviously it's one thing to lead yourself, but how do you lead others and how do you empower them so that they can grow? Because obviously you guys experienced, like, Coach Liv got her first head coaching job because she was immersed in everything that we were doing in this program. And I think there's got to be a lot of pride in being able to delegate and hand things off to other people and lead them so that they're ready to then go take over their own program. So I think with good coaches, that's a big piece of it too, and taking a lot of pride in that.
Hmm. Yeah, the delegation of tasks, I think it's hard, as an athlete, as a student, especially with people at a high academic institution. And just, I think athletes in general, they want to try to do everything themselves, but really the way you're going to get the most success and reach the top is by, like you said, empowering people around you and like having people help you along the way. I know for me, I struggle a lot with asking people for help.
Mm,
And or like asking people to do things for me because I want to do it myself or I don't want to feel like a burden. So definitely something to work on. But like you said, that's how you really get better too.
Mhm.
So if you could go back and speak to your younger self at Kenyon, 2010, freshman, what advice would you give to her about confidence, leadership, and chasing big goals like you've achieved right now?
Mhm. I would just say, like, I think we talk about it a lot in our program, being present, but I would tell her to just like take it one day at a time. And I think going to a really good academic institution, right, where you're challenged in the classroom every day, you're so caught up in what's next, right? What's that next job? What's that next year look like? Oh, I'll be happy when I get this position or I get this accolade. And I think just really enjoying the day to day that you get with your teammates because you don't ever get that time back. So I would tell her to just be as present and to soak in all of the experiences and understand that like failure is a part of like success. I think in a way you have to fail sometimes over and over and you have to go through adversities in order to really grow as a person, and I think that's what, like I said, college is all about. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. It wasn't obviously at Kenyon, but learning to embrace that a little bit more and not let it get me down, I think would have been a really important thing to hear. And I think just trust yourself. I would have told her to just trust yourself and, like, trust your gut and understand that, like, it'll all pay off, and it like, I think sometimes we live our lives in a way where it's like, "I gotta do this by this age. I gotta be making this by this age. I gotta have this job, or I gotta have this relationship by this point." And I just would encourage her not to live her life that way and just to take it take it one day at a time, because if you woulda asked me going into 2010, I kid you, I think I would have been working for some big corporate world in the market research world and had 2 kids and married, and, like, that's obviously not what I am at 34 right now, so I think it's just learning to embrace that it's not always gonna be a linear process, and the path to enjoying what you do is not necessarily the path that you have carved out for yourself, and just learning to roll with the punches a little bit more and enjoy the journey would be something I talk to her about, and, yeah, just tell her that like the women that you surround yourself with is really important too, and it's important to empower them and to give them those opportunities as well.
Yeah, it's definitely important. And it's been so inspiring to hear your experiences as a coach, and having to be coached by you has been like so amazing because not only have I gotten better at basketball, but I feel like my experiences was similar to you. I feel like, I it would be so awesome to get this really cool job, corporate world, but I think back, or I think deep down, I would not be happy. I would not be happy at all. And it's exactly what you said. I think it's so important to find joy in what you're doing in this very moment. So if
Mhm,
I'm enjoying playing basketball, I'm going to enjoy playing basketball and I'm going to keep playing basketball. And
mhm,
it's for every single athlete, every single student, person. It's so important to find joy in the things that you're doing. And if they're not finding joy, then it's time for a change.
mhm.
So, if this conversation is the only thing a young female athlete ever hears from you, what's one message you want her to remember?
I think what you do matters. How you show up every day matters, and I think like you like we see you, like you're working really hard, and I think sometimes you get caught up in like I said, we've talked about a lot, questioning your confidence, comparing yourself to other people, and just to tell her that like just continue to like take it one day at a time and continue to put one foot in front of the other, and really good things are going to happen for you. And I think it's important to enjoy it and look around a little bit sometimes, look at the people that are in your corner, and then sometimes take a look back and see how far you've come, because I think sometimes when you get so caught up in the next thing, the next step, that you don't see how far you've come and how much you've grown. And I think there's always this pursuit of better and pursuit of excellence, which is awesome. And I think you have to take a step back sometimes and just say, whoa, like, what have I already done? Like, thinking about you from your first year to your junior year, being able to recognize the growth over that 3-year period. Because I think as now a senior in college, it's like, oh, I got to do this next. I got to do this big thing. I got to achieve this on the court. But it's like, take a step back for a second and be like, whoa, like, the work that I've put in has paid off. And I think that should give, I think, a lot of people confidence when they do go into that next step, is like, the work sometimes doesn't show up in the way that you imagine it, But if you keep putting in the work and putting in the time and, being someone that empowers the people around you to be at their best, like, good things are gonna happen. And yeah, I think it's just like just enjoying the journey and not taking any day for granted that you get to do this and you get to wake up and have control over what you do with your life. I think that's the most important thing. And obviously, as someone that's gone through health issues, you can't put a price on that. When you're sitting in a hospital bed, looking out the window and trying to hope the days speed up, right? Like now when being able to be out and to do what I love every day, like just not taking that for granted. I think that's given me that perspective too.
Thank you so much, Coach Mo, for being on the podcast. This was an incredible conversation. Thank you so much for listening to this conversation with Coach Mo. I hope that you guys walked away with as much inspiration from this episode as I did. Coach Mo's story is a powerful reminder that great leadership is built on confidence, teamwork, being present, and joy. And that the most meaningful success comes from staying true to your values and investing in the people around you. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love for you to share it with a teammate, coach, friend, or anyone who could benefit from Coach Mo's perspective. You never know how one conversation can make a lasting impact. As always, thank you for being here today and for listening. I'm Violet Mitchell, and this has been Lead Like Her. I'll see you next time.